I was born in Thailand, in the very well-to-do family, very much aristocratic family. As a young girl in aristocratic family, I always had to be a certain way. I always had to behave a certain way. And I always have to watch what I be and do so that I would not bring shame to the family. So that's basically full of definition, full of conclusion, full of projection, and full of judgment. And I didn't know any better, during those times, I didn't know any better. So I always worrying about what would people think of me. That's who I have been from the start. But who I am now is totally different to who I was. I knew that I have capacity to be and do whatever. But when I was younger, I didn't know what that actually meant because whatever I chose to do, I could do it well. But I never saw that as a gift because I thought that everyone can do it. Like I could I could just, if I choose to write, I could just write. If I choose to do whatever, I don't actually try to work out how to do it. So I think that has been uh, a uniqueness that I always have all my life, that I never have to actually work out how. I have been a seeker all my life. So I came to Australia to study in when I was about 14. And I ended up meeting a lovely man called Stephen Bowman and married him when I was 20. So Steve and I been married together for 45 years now. At the beginning, Steve and I went to US and did our master degree there for 2 years. We stay in Washington, D.C. Well, we study in Washington, D.C. and we stay in Arlington, Virginia. We knew that we could create something totally different being together. We were willing to drop everything we had here and just go over to US, knowing that by choosing that, it's going to create more in our life. And we totally trust that we could create it, even though we didn't have much money. For 2 years, we live in the space of, for most people would be lack. We had no money. All we could eat is, I think you still have it in US of $1 TV dinner. It could be more now. It'd probably be $5, right? But during our time there, we had $1 TV dinner, and Steve and I ate that for 2 years. We know what's it like to live from a space of not having much money. But from that space, we never had a doubt. We knew that physically, we didn't have spare cash to be spending a lot of money. So we had to be willing to do whatever it takes to be able to create our life. By then, I graduated and I had a degree in design. So it's like industrial design, fashion design. So when we were in US, I knew that, so what can I actually do to actually bring in more money? 35 years ago, Australia just starting to become something totally different. No one knew much about Australia because we didn't have Nicole, we didn't have all these people who's a superstar. But the idea of, Australian, they're different. So I thought, well, what would it be like if I designed thing with Australiana on it? And I did design garments with, like Australian flowers and kookaburra and all these Australiana things. So we went and found secondhand knitting machine, really, really old knitting machine. And I started teaching myself how to create all these garments with this knitting machine. So I made 10 designs, and Steve and I caught the train from Washington, D.C. to New York. Knew nobody, knew nothing, didn't even know that's not possible. So we carried these 10 garments to New York. We walked the street of 7th Avenue in New York. I went and knocked on the door of Saks, actually, and the buyer's assistant said, you can't just knock on the door and come in, but say, I want to show you things, but hey, the buyer would like to see you anyway. And so we went in. So we got to see all the buyers from all of these major things, because I think we unique in itself, and also we have the courage to not knowing what we can't do. So we were able to do it, and they end up saying, Chutisa and Steve, you actually need to find an agent. And once you have an agent, they can support you, promote you, and sell what you do from wherever you are in the world. So one of the buyer picked up the phone and called this agent and said, "Oh, we have these Australian people who have amazing garments and amazing product. Would you see them?" So we went immediately, walked back to Fifth Avenue. That he saw us, look at the thing, and took us on immediately. So from then on, I had garment show in Dallas, trade show and all this sort of thing, and started making. So that's the beginning of creating something from nothing, creating something from no money, creating something from not knowing how to do it. So that's a start. So I had my business for a while, and then I was headhunted by a major Fortune 500, that's what you call in Australia, to develop merchandise and product and become a buyer for 435 stores in Australia and Asia. So then I stopped my own business and took up the position in the corporate world, and I was there for 20 years, being a senior executive, traveled the world looking, buying, developing product for 20 years. And Steve was CEO. He's ended up being a CEO for about 4 organizations, like corporate treasurer, banking and finance, and all these sort of things. And we look at each other and we thought that would be fun to work together, but we are not in the same industry. We are not in the same anything. How could we actually do anything to actually work together? And by then, Sheridan is our daughter. Sheridan just finished her private school. And we thought, well, it's now the time for us to actually do something together, form a business and create a business together. And we got a strong yes, even though we had no idea what that meant. And which means that I had to leave my, 6-figure income, and had to leave his 6-figure income during that time to start something together, because we didn't want to just do this thing, we're going to try out, we're going to create a business. We just thought we either choose or we're not, so if we're going to choose to create something, we choose to create something from ground zero, meaning build the business up. So both of us had a lot of experience in corporate world. We were still working in corporate world, but one day Steve and I said, we could actually work together. Not quite sure what it is that we're going to be doing, but we could form the business together. And Steve is so his has an expertise in governance, leadership, governance training, because all businesses have to know about governance, not government. Governance mean leading, like the board work, uh, um, facilitate the board to be more conscious, because every organization that have a board, sometimes the board are not knowing why they're there, what's their role, and what can they be and do that would allow them to expand and be a contribution to make the organization better. So that has been our job. We thought, okay, maybe that is the case, something we could do. We could introduce the board in Australia to start off with, to know what's the role of the board, and what else can there be, what else can they create, and the contribution that the whole board can make the business better and make the world a better place. So we introduce the board to see the world through different eyes, instead of just sitting there trying to create the business from control, force, and effort, to create the business from being a contribution, from being, generative, from being a true conscious leader. So that's how conscious leadership started, and that's how Steve and I set up the business, became partner, and we didn't have any client because we were both working at corporate world, but that didn't deter us. We just knew that we could do, because the same energy that we created when we were in US is the same energy we started creating our business. When we got together, and our business been there for nearly 20 years now. Steve and I never actually, we have to claim on and acknowledge that whatever we make the choice to choose, it's not come from the wishing. We make a deliberate choice to know that we could choose. So when we said that it's truly possible, but we didn't, it's very hard to define it. We knew that it could be possible, and but we didn't know how, and we didn't know no one else ever done it, but we didn't have any doubt that it could be possible. And I think that is the kind of things that I have always been doing, that I made the choice, and whenever I have a doubt, I know that there's something funky in that anyway. So I have to look at, so what point of view do I have that create that doubt? Steve and I know what we wanted to create. And at the beginning, we didn't have the same, you know, from a lack of a better word, vision. We just knew that we want to create something. We want to create a life that's different. We want to enjoy our life. We all have the capacity to choose to be and do anything that we would like to be and do. As long as you don't have a judgment that you can't, as long as you don't have the belief that it's not possible. Because as soon as you go into the conclusion of, I can't, it's not possible, everyone else can, you already trap yourself in this contextual reality, trying to fit in, trying to be just like everyone else. If you can actually let go of the need to be like everyone else, which means that you have to be willing to be judged hugely of being different. For me to truly choosing to be different, I have to be willing to receive everything without judgment. And that's the message that I would like to leave for people. When we make a choice to totally be different, we have to be willing to actually look at the people and say, you know, I don't know what you see me, but okay, I am different and willing to receive whatever you're projecting at me. So be whoever you want to be without worrying about anyone, how people react to you, how people choose to receive you. Because uh, even thinking that people should receive you a certain way is a projection anyway, because everyone receive you differently. And by not throwing rotten tomato at me, that's a receiving. You know what I mean? So who knows what the receiving actually is from each person.